Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the FinTalk Show. I'm your host Hijaz, and with me is Muiz and Fatha, our co-host for the show today. This podcast has two segments, and we will be touching on various topics regarding finance, real estate, and business. This show is recorded by audio. Highlights of this episode will be posted on our YouTube channel. So here's a little disclaimer. This show is a bilingual show, a mix of English and Malay. This show also only presents opinions from the hosts and also participants. Do not take everything as professional advice. For the first segment, I will be touching on fundamental analysis, determining the value of a stock. And on the second segment, Muiz will be hosting it later on. Without further ado, we will begin our first segment. We will be talking on fundamental analysis. So fundamental analysis determining the value for a stock. So when we talk about fundamental analysis for stocks, we always see revenues, earnings, future growth, return on equity, profit margins, and also return on investment to determine the company's underlying value. Few things before I go into detail. Fundamental analysis is not the only approach to investment and trading. There's also technical analysis, and also once I learned about EMH, efficient market hypothesis, where at the end of the day we assume that the market is efficient, and at the end of the day there's also other approaches to it lah. There's also sentimental. You see the sentiments of the market, but for today the beef of the topic will be on fundamental analysis. So fundamental analysis, valuing a business, I mean, like, to value an asset or a stock, we have to actually value it. We have to approach it in few ways. So valuing a business or an asset, there's three known ways. So first is cost approach, second is market approach, and thirdly is discounted cash flow approach. So cost approach is when you can see what is the cost to build certain things on such property or asset, and also the replacement cost of such asset. Okay, so the cost approach is not really used in finance, but mostly used in real estate. Okay, for example, when you talk about selling a land, you want to sell the land for such value, and also if you want to replace the land, you have to acquire a land that has similar value, if I'm not mistaken. Right or not, Muiz?
Sorry bro, tadi off the microphone.
Okay, so never mind. We'll just continue straight away. There's also market approach. So market approach, I will be touching on very lightly, which is public company comparables. Public company comparables is when you compare few companies within the same industry. Usually, we compare it with the same size. So, for example, if it's in the glove sector or within the construction center, we usually compare it between rival companies, or within the industry. So glove sectors, we know Top Glove, Supermax, Kosan, Hartalega, while in for example in construction we have IJM, we have also Gamuda. So all these companies, we can compare it using the market approach. Then the most touched on topic for today is discounted cash flow approach. So what is the discounted cash flow? So a discounted cash flow is basically we look at the value of the company in the future using forecast of their future cash flows. Look at the discounted cash flow. We will at the end of the day analyze their free cash flow. So to determine whether or not the company is healthier than the competition, usually we will see the free cash flow, because by theory two companies can have similar revenue, similar profits, and similar and seems to be of the same size. But we do not know whether or not one company has capital injection, or has a lot more debt, or the other company has more cash. So how we actually determine which company has more cash, is more healthier, I mean, is by looking at their free cash flow. So how to get the free cash flow? we have to look at the discounted cash flow. So far so good. All right.
Okay, just all clear.
So discounted cash flow model, how we are going to approach is we have to look at the company value. So the value of the company depends on the future cash flows generated by the company, discounted at the required rate of return demanded by the investors. So discounted by the required rate of return is like the return on equity for the investors. So when you, if once you learn corporate finance, you understand that there's always the calculation of calculating whether or not that particular cash flow. There's also like I studied the other day on OCF, operating cash flow. There's required rate of return. There's also discount rate and tax rate. So what those are one of the rates.
I just want to ask. So
Okay.
you have few valuation method to value a company. So how you decide which one is the right one for a particular company?
Which one I would actually decide on, it is pretty subjective. I wouldn't say I have a definite strategy on looking which method of valuation I will be using, but most of the time I will depend on the discounted cash flow because of the status of the business. So business requires the cash flow to be healthy. So that's why. And then one more, there should be. Other than that, I will also look at the net tangible assets. Hold on
So,
a second.
Mr. Ijaz.
Yes.
So you were saying you're using discounted cash flow method, right? So none of the methods that you mentioned is correct. So what's the flaw of using discounted cash flow?
Oh, there definitely is. There definitely are cons to using the discounted cash flow method.
Yeah,
So,
some of it.
okay, so the discounted cash flow definitely has their pros and cons. So, one of the cons would be it requires these assumptions are also very sensitive to change. So they are also prone to errors. So, basically, errors such as like people can also play with the cash flow data. And one more, especially in startups, you can't really get value a company that just started out using the discounted cash flow method. So, for example, if you found a unicorn that has just started out like Clubhouse, which just started out last year, you can't determine the discounted cash flow of such company and use it as a valuation method, because one, it is a tech company, and two, it is a startup. So it is not fair to use it as such. So basically,
My
the discounted
opinion,
cash flow you cannot use for companies that are using intellectual property or tech are basically tech based. If I'm
is
not,
it so?
excuse me.
Is it so? I mean, in my opinion, the flaw is that we don't account for future growth. Not that, yeah, what you mentioned is also correct, lah. But to me personally, what if I choose to invest in a company, I look forward in what they can uh, generate in future. But if you use future discounted cash flow, right, you don't really account for future growth, future prospect, because that's past
Like
data, right?
I was that I'm partially right, but okay. So first and foremost, when we talk about discounted cash flow, we're talking about the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So EBITDA. Usually we will look at EBITDA. So EBITDA is just the earnings before you take into consideration of interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. Then after that, it's earnings after depreciation and amortization. Later on, when you get the earnings after the depreciation and amortization, you minus the tax rate. So after that, we get earnings after tax. So earnings after tax is like the net earning. It's not really net earnings yet. So let's just say it's earnings after tax. There's capital expenses after that. So capital expenses is when you have to spend on the plant, basically plant on. I can't really remember the term. Hold on for a second.
I'm just wondering. Just now, someone said that discounted cash flow does not take into account of a future growth of a company. Do you mind elaborate more on that?
Okay, Sam. What do you mean by that?
Because discounted cash flow, right, is the data that we extract from is what has happened lah. But in my approach of investing, I look for future prospect of the company. Say, for example, how can the company grow and give out more dividend in the future, right? So the flaw that I see lah from using discounted cash flow is that it does not take into account the future prospect of company. How can they generate more cash flow in the future? It's just in my opinion lah. I might be wrong.
No worries, because in my opinion, if I may, let's say if you expect a certain company to grow at 10%, 20%, the earnings will grow at that kind of momentum. If you project their future earnings, then I guess you can say that a discounted cash flow can take into account for company future growth. But if you are doing DCF based on a company historical earnings, then that's an entirely different story. Because I think in DCF also you have to take. I mean, if you are estimating a company future growth, you have to project the earnings and whatnot based on your assumptions. So when you do a DCF, based on your estimations, then I guess it does take into account of the company future growth. That was what I'm trying to get lah.
All right. Thank you.
I could be wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, that explains lah. That explains lah.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Sam and Magat. So basically, when I was at capital expenses, so earnings after tax, when you minus capital expenses, which is basically buildings, vehicle, equipment, or land, then you get the free cash flow. So the free cash flow is the meat of all the um, what you say, the valuation. So when you take the free cash flow, you can see that they have some amount of cash, but that is not taking into consideration of the discounted cash flow. So the discounted cash flow is not really finished yet. So we have to look at the discount rate and also the present value. So once you get into the once you've already taken into consideration of the discount rate and also present value, and you forecast the thing, then you get the discounted cash flow. So you can see the value of the company throughout the year. So far, so good?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So that's the discounted cash flow. And then one more valuation that usually people will look at through fundamental analysis, at least, is net tangible assets. So net tangible assets is basically total assets minus total liabilities and also intangible assets. So that's how you get net tangible assets. Usually net tangible assets are physical assets, because they are tangible assets at the end of the day, not including intellectual property, trademark, and such and of such lah, etc. So when you talk about net tangible assets, you're focusing on the value of their physical assets. So for example, company A might have a lot of land and land bank, and also they have trademarks, and also they have buildings. So when you minus the trademarks, they get you only take into consideration their land bank, and also their buildings. And when you take into consideration the value of these assets, then when it times to liquidate, then you get to see the value of the company if you liquidate their assets. So basically, if they have more assets, usually it is better for the company to have more assets once it comes to, for safety reasons. Let's say when the company is about to go bankrupt, if they have a lot of assets acquired, they have to liquidate the assets. At least they can recover some of the capital that was lost during if you invested in the company, for example. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. But why don't you prefer this method compared to the discounted cash flow one?
Excuse me, Sam. Why do I prefer discounted cash flow over?
over the net tangible assets.
I don't prefer both over the one over the other. I usually look at both of it. So remember when we talked about stocks the other day, like Harta Lega and Supermax. So I would look at the net tangible assets as well as also the free cash flow. So if I see which one has higher net tangible assets and higher free cash flow compared to the their market capi- their market cap their market capitalization, and when I see if they have higher amount or higher ratio compared to market cap, I would say, okay, this company has value. This company wouldn't simply go down to the drains tomorrow. That's what I would see lah. They have value, and I see them have high value if they have bigger amounts of net tangible assets and free cash flow. So the discounted cash flow, on the other hand, will just help me to see the future of the company. Usually, when you forecast their like if you have their past performance and you forecast their future performance, then it would be better for me to see the performance of the company throughout the years and what we can expect. So other than that,
Okay.
I have
How about if the company is losing money at the moment, but future projection is the company is going to make profit lah? How do you account for such stuff using the methods that you mentioned?
So are they losing the money in the future or are they losing money now but
No, they are
projected to
losing. They are not making profit now, but it is projected that they will be lah in the future. They will be
so
making profit.
so usually when it comes to like projected if they are projected to lose money because their business is not going to do well, um, then it becomes a red flag for me. I wouldn't invest in the company. However, it really depends. Um, Warren Buffett ever talked about cigarette butt companies. So cigarette butt companies are like companies that are good for another one or two more puffs. So I'm not sure whether or not I would see it as if they can manage to liquidate all their all their assets and can gain back the capital, or even you can gain more out of it. It really depends. If you can gain more out of their liquidation when you invest in them, like you're just hoping they go bankrupt
I
and
don't.
roll.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can get more when the company is going to bankrupt. Because if
I'm
they
not
are
sure.
because if they
I'm
are
not.
forced to sell their assets, right, they
Yeah,
won't
they're.
be making a lot of money. They'll be selling it
I
at
mean,
way discounted price.
I mean, it really depends also. If it depends on the company, you have to be really smart. I'm not sure in Bursa Malaysia, but I've seen when I read the intelligent investor last time, when they talked about cigarette butt companies, usually if they can liquidate and gain more from their previous capital, then it should be no problem. Just by theory is still there. I mean, but if you see like if you're going to stay in there, if you stay in there and you're going to lose more than what you can gain, then better you just pull back lah, unless you're a director of the company and you don't want to dump the shares. If you want to go down together with the company, then other than that, I think there's no problem with if it really depends if they are with their value, their underlying value. So if their underlying value is very good, then okay, no problem. Anybody not understand what I have just said just now?
Understood. Understood.
Okay. So next we will just look at other things that fundamental analysis can bring to the table compared to like technical analysis and also sentimental like you're trading by sentiments or by news. So what are the things that fundamental analysis can provide that technical analysis can't is basically seeing the value of the company. So as we know, trading you can always trade by signals, but when you want to invest, you have to look at the value of the company. So for like long-term investments, whether or not the company is worth to actually invest in. So, but yesterday Alip have actually shared something that even trading also require a little bit of fundamental analysis. Okay, Alip, why not you share to me what you wanted to say yesterday about fundamental analysis in trading?
Okay,
Well,
so everyone's listening. Semua dengar tak?
dengar,
Dengar,
dengar.
dengar.
Alright. So regarding fundamental ni is one of the aspect yang sangat important in choosing in hunting for our stocks. So in regarding fundamentals ni adalah of course about the financial apa semua and also their past performance. At the very least like 3 to 5 years lah kan, we see how their financial and how their money assets apa semua. Okay, so tapi apa tu for fundamental ni is very strong sebab walaupun dia okay lah kalau macam pernah dulu waktu interview my supervisor ask me yang about technical ke fundamental kan, which would you go for. So kalau aku akan cakap sebab depends on our style of trading lah, whether it is short term or long term. So which is day trading ataupun invest stock for a long time lah, for more than a year. So I think for fundamental fundamental even dalam day trading pun akan sangat penting sebab I think memanglah kita nak ambil kita punya profit in like just day ataupun 2 or 3 days, tapi apa yang membuatkan kita nak tahan sampai 2-3 hari tu is for me is I think about extending the power of holding. So bila kita tengok fundamental yang kuat ni, so that bila kita choose that 1 or 2 stocks, kita boleh pegang dia sebab kita believe the power of fundamental ni boleh bawa dia pergi jauh. Sebab kalau technical, setakat kita technical, lepas tu kita tengok based on reference to news, ya benda tu sangat volatile. Kita tak tahu apa jadi news akan jadi esok, apa news akan jadi 2 days later. Tapi for fundamentals ni dia adalah dia punya foundation itself. So bila kita berpegang kepada satu foundation yang sangat kuat, dekat situ kita instill a self belief yang benda ni, and also self belief and also a good strong of faith lah yang benda ni boleh pergi jauh. Sebab apa, this is also include as our study lah, kita sendiri punya analysis. So kita we trust the process. Yes, so itulah dia.
Okay, thank you Alip. So that is a good share actually. Analysis also, like you want to have to hold the share and also see the value of the share and gain like profits. Okay, so instead of trading, some people just invest for the dividends. So regardless of the price of the value or the price of the stock, if they see that the value of the company is good and they want to take dividends, then they'll go into they'll make a proper valuation and they'll go in just to get dividends. And later on, maybe when they want to sell, then it's a different story. And also, let's say if the price suddenly drops, then that will be a problem for a lot of holders. But most of the time, it doesn't drop drastically. It will drop consistently, yes, but it rarely does drop drastically unless that company is in a lot of scandals, it is involved in a lot of problematic practices. For example, like Enron, if we go back to 2000s, the 2000s, 2001, if I'm not mistaken, how Enron actually drop their price, how their stock actually dropped in price, and is actually related to their bad practices. And one more, companies like Enron, yeah, like people say they paper making profit, but actually they didn't even gain the profit yet. They managed to, get around the system and get, more loans and more. They get more capital injection, regardless how much profit that they are actually making physically at the moment. So certain bad practices and creative accounting, and also bad practices by the accounting firm, which is Arthur Andersen at that time, led to the downfall of both Enron and also Arthur Andersen. So that's just a little trivial fact. So if there's anything else that we can talk on fundamental analysis, any questions that can be asked, you should ask right now. Any questions, Iqbal?
Hey guys, I'm very curious about which fundamental analysis that we should use, especially when it comes to um, because because in my judgment, not all analysis are suitable for all companies. So there are companies that show negative earnings, like what Sam said, but they projected growth in future. So I think we can't use PE ratio for that particular companies. So do you guys have any experience or knowledge that you want to share in answering my question? Thank you.
All right. So anybody would like to share their experience? Sorry, Iqbal, my line was a little bit off just now, so I didn't hear most of what you said. If you can repeat one more time, it would be great. Maybe I can share a little bit.
I'm curious because not all fundamental analysis can be used in all companies because for say I'm taking what Sam said just now. There are companies that are generating negative earnings right now, but they are projected to have a higher growth in future. Maybe next 2 years, next 1 year, or maybe next 3 years. So my question is, so what fundamental analysis and that determines it's suitable for this particular company or for this particular industry based on the
Oh,
experience and knowledge that you have?
I see.
Thank you.
I've also a bit on this idea as well, like which technique is the best technique, which form of analysis is the best, like what part of fundamental analysis can you value the company and see their high growth, or to see whether you can invest in that company because of their growth potential, right? I'm not really I've not really explored the idea fully, but I've also seen a few people talking about valuation. So it goes back to valuation of the company. So certain methods are not appropriate to use. Like if you want to see a startup company which just began their business, and you see them have a potential. So you want to know whether or not their company is basically, providing value, or whether or not is it a unicorn, or is it going to be a flop. We do not know much. However, we can always do some form of valuation, but it wouldn't be the traditional looking at financial reports. It will be tough. One. Number two, if it's a public listed company, you still have to do some form of fundamental analysis. So you have to read financial statements, all their financial statements, whether or not this company is good. If it's if it's a public listed company, I mean that's important. You have to always see their financial statements once you want to see whether or not they have growth potential, or if you invest in it, is it high value. If it's public listed, yeah, you should do it. But if it's a startup company, then yeah, it will be tough, because one, it's private, there's not much information out there. Number two, we do not know who are the backers also. So certain things we're not really clear when we want to invest in such company. So usually they come and pitch to you, and usually you're an angel investor or a venture capitalist at that time. But other than that, if it's For small companies, you want to evaluate them, you want to have valuation on that company, then you have to go through proper valuation steps. And that is already way beyond my academic reach for now. I can't really comment much on what method is the best. It really depends on on the company. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong.
Can I share my thought?
Sure.
Please.
Okay. This my method that I'm using to evaluate such companies. I don't really look into the financial statements per se because it do not justify their future earning, future potential. Okay. So what I do is I look into the industry that they are currently in, and then look into the industry in general lah. How much is the industry growing? How much is the demand growing in the particular industry? And then the second thing that I would look at is the board of directors lah. The directors that the company, the negative earning company is hiring. Is the director a good director? Are they capable of turning around the company? Let's say, for example, a company in Malaysia, the name is K Power. It used to be a very negative earning company lah. They lose money every quarters lah. Until 2019 or 2018, a new director, a new shareholder lah, a major shareholder named Dato' Abdul Karim, he took over the majority of the share and then turn around the company from a undergarment company, I think, to a diverse company, currently involved in construction and other things lah, property and as such. Yeah, so I would look into the company sector and the board of director, not financial statement per se lah.
I see. So basically,
I see.
announcement.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, Iqbal?
No, I was just thanking Sam about sharing his
Oh,
experience and knowledge.
I see. Magad, what do you think, Magad?
Well, I think Sam mentioned a very good point just now. Assuming that company is having a negative earnings, so one of the most important criteria to look at is at the management. How is the management doing to counterback the problems that they are facing? And you also mentioned a very fair point. If it's a startup company, you can't just look at earnings per se, because they are not making money yet. But one of the things that you should look at is that how fast are they growing, the kind of industry that they are venturing in, how unique they are, and stuff like that. And I'm not sure what you guys mean by earnings, but if let's say company like say macam Genting Malaysia, so they are in net loss because of COVID and whatnot. So does that mean Genting Malaysia is not a good company to buy? Some people will argue it's not really, because they are affected by COVID, hence why the earnings are negative. But it could be a good recovery play once COVID is ended. And like I think Iqbal mentioned just now, if the earnings is negative, then if you want to use PE, it's not relevant. But there's also various part of valuation techniques that you can look at. For example, you can look at EV, EBITDA, you can look at EV sales and whatnot. So if earnings is not relevant, then how about the revenue? How about the EBITDA? So there are multiples way for you to look at the financial statement rather than just looking at the bottom line. So you could look at their revenue growth, how are they trending over the past few years. So there are a few measures that you can use to look at the company using financial analysis, I would say.
I see. Interesting when you talk about Genting, right? Like Genting is also, it depends also on the stocks. So the nature of the stocks and the nature of their performance. Naturally, Genting is also seasonal. They are also tourist based because people tend to go there during holidays for some tourist activities and also some other activities that I wouldn't mention here right now. Well, basically they are a casino, right? So when you look at the stock nature itself, they are seasonal. So whenever there's high traffic of tourists, Is it the time of the month where a lot of people go there to uh, like want to play their favorite games in the casino, and then after that it also depends on the economic cycle. So like at that time, is the economic cycle doing good? Is the economy doing good? Are people flush with cash at that time, or is it not? So yeah, definitely valuation of a company like Genting, you can't really look at their negative returns, whether or not it is their earnings are bad at that year, and saying that, oh look, this company is bad. We can't really say that for such stocks. So seasonal stocks like Genting, maybe like the Sands, yeah. What else are the companies that like, as long as they follow the economic cycle, where a lot of people actually are in it to trade, and to also have a lot of traffic in their business, then yeah, valuing the company by looking at it 1 year or another year based on their performance on that year alone is not fair, I would say. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and to summarize that, well, from an investor perspective, you can't just look at a company from a qualitative view. You must also look at it from the quantitative view. So you can't make a decision based only one view lah. It has to take both into actions lah.
Exactly. So, any other questions from the audience? Maybe Paan or Alip or Iqbal, you have any other questions? Muiz, if Chot, or anybody else? If you have a question, do come forward, because I'm also.
From what I know lah, we'll look at the PE ratio lah to justify the market capitalization. So the higher the PE is, we could see that the company is overvalued lah. This is from my learning lah, because say for example Tesla, right? They are trading at 1,000 PE, I think, around that lah. So some would argue that the company is very overvalued, but same thing happened with Amazon actually a few years back. They were trading also at 1,000 plus PE, but look at them now. The PE is less than 100, I think, less than 50, I think. Yeah. One way to look at it is to look at the PE ratio lah. But can they in future justify their price by looking into the future profit and PE ratio lah? I think.
Yes, that's a fair. I would also look at like again, I guess, on free cash flow assets. So if they have that, if they have high cash, high free cash flow, and high net relative to their market cap, and also when you compare it with their peers in their industry, then yeah, it would actually say a lot about the value. I wouldn't look at the market cap per se, because market cap also it's just correct me if I'm wrong, market cap is more like you're talking about the size of the company within the market. So am I right or am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
So
True.
if you look at it just by the size.
Oh yeah, for a company like that, I don't really like looking into their free cash flow lah, because for a company that is trading at high PE, I would prefer them to have low free cash flow. I think I would prefer them to invest their money in PPE to future justify.
To me, if you have a lot of
To me lah, it's
I
also
get
not a good sign actually. To me lah, because you don't know how to utilize your cash. To me.
I mean, to me, yeah. I mean, the free cash flow is just a statement there that they have excess cash. So how much they're going to use that cash for investment purposes to roll in their company back is a whole other story, which is also important to actually look at their financial statements. What do they do with their the excess earnings they have? How do they roll it in their company? Whether or not they roll it as dividends or or do they roll it as more capital? It really depends. But yeah, I think that's a fair argument. I would say I would always look at the value at the end of the day. How much cash do they have, or how much assets do they have? So it really shows a lot on the sign of how healthy the company is. Therefore, that's how I will value the company. Well, thank you very much, Sam. So that's all for the first segment, I guess.
Thank you very much, Jazz. All right, guys. We are starting the next segment for tonight's podcast, which is on area review of Cyberjaya City. So, we have a special guest here with us is Fatha. All right, Fatha, can you introduce yourself?
Alright, hello everyone. Is Fatha Shakira. As for my background, previously I hold a diploma in town and regional planning. Currently pursuing my degree in estate management. For my experience, I did my internship, my 6-month internship in EcoWorlds. As you guys know, EcoWorlds is the property property market player in Malaysia.
Yes, a listed company also.
Yes.
Right, Fatha. Nice background.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So the floor is yours. You just straight away discuss on your area review of Cyberjaya, if you may.
Okay, the area review of Cyberjaya. Okay, without further ado, I will explain a bit the general information of Cyberjaya. Okay, as you guys know, Cyberjaya is known as Silicon Valley of Malaysia, right? So it's the place where high-tech industry gathers, and if I'm not mistaken, it will become a global technology hub someday.
Yes.
So what makes Cyberjaya great for investment? I mean, what makes Cyberjaya is a great place to invest? So I already list down several factors that make Cyberjaya great. Firstly is accessibility, secondly is zoning, and thirdly is development. And I will touch on accessibility first. Okay, Cyberjaya in terms of location wise, I think in my opinion is a very good location because there's a lot of highways surrounding it and there's a lot of road where everyone can commute easily. For example, there's a Max Highway. It just take 20 minutes from KL, and then Elite Highway as well as the MRT SSP line, MRT Sungai Buloh Serdang Putrajaya. I think it's already open if I'm not. So that's make Cyberjaya is a good place to invest in terms of
I see.
accessibility because from my backgrounds like planning, um, accessibility or network is like the bone of a city. Without accessibility, it will be difficult for people to move around. So that's about accessibility. Now I'm moving on to zoning. In planning, zoning is like macam pengezonan guna tanah or land use zone. So the land itself will not like macam bercanggah. Do you guys get what I mean?
Mungkin sebab zoning ni dia berkait rapat dengan akta-akta seperti National Land Code kot. Disebabkan sebab
Ya, dia ada juga National Land Code. Tapi mostly dia guna Town and Regional Country Planning lah. Punya
ya.
act.
Namanya apa
Zoning-
rancangan sesebuah tempat kan?
That one is the rancangan. Dia ada dia depends lah. Kalau macam negeri dia panggil rancangan struktur or state structure plan.
Yes, SSP.
Okay. Kalau untuk daerah dia panggil yang local plan. So kiranya usually if Cyberjaya usually dia punya local plan dia from Sepang lah, Sepang local plan. So there's a color map over there. So zoning in planning based on colors. So there's several colors over here. If blue, it means commercial area. If there's a brownish over there, is the residential area. That's how we know the zoning of that area.
Yes. The white one is on educational, right?
Yes, the white one is the education
Oh.
area. So, if I'm not mistaken, Cyberjaya is divided into 12 respective zone. Okay, 12 respective zone. For example, for Cyber 7 is for the residential areas. Cyber 4 and 5 is for the industries area. As we know that Cyberjaya is planned to be a Silicon Valley of Malaysia, which is a place where all the industries gather. So there's a lot of industries, high technology industry over there, such as HSBC, TM, PFW, and to name a few of it. We moving on to the development. For the development, Cyberjaya is surrounded by a mature township. Mature township can be defined as a township or areas that already established or already developed. Okay. Since Cyberjaya is located nearby with Putrajaya, Kajang, what else? Dengkil that already has their own development. So I think Cyberjaya is a great place to invest because it was surrounded by a mature township. Some people like to invest in a place where they can go to several place. How to say, Muiz?
Dia punya connectivity dia sangat strong lah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say.
Yes, sebab kalau kita tengok kan radius dia dalam 10, 20 and 30 kilometers tu dah sampai ke other region as well, macam Putrajaya boleh sampai. Lepas
Yeah,
tu
Putrajaya.
kalau furthermore to 30 kilometers and above, kita boleh sampai terus Kuala Lumpur.
Yes, that's why I said. I think, in my opinion, Cyberjaya is a great place to invest.
Yes, betul. Aku pun setuju dengan statement tu.
Yeah, because for startup company also, it's a good
Yeah.
place for you to start your company in Cyberjaya.
Yes, dia lagi-lagi tech companies lah.
Yeah, lagi-lagi because as I said earlier, that Cyberjaya firstly planned for industries. So yeah, it's a good place for the high tech technology industries
How about
to
the
start up.
cost? How about the cost? The cost of like the cost of living
Cost of
there,
living.
the cost of transportation there, things like that.
I see. Fatha, boleh share tak you punya thoughts?
For me, cost of living for me not that high yet because it's still developed, right?
I see. Alip,
Yep,
Alip,
yes. Yeah,
Ah.
yes.
Okay, Alip. Bagi aku lah, kalau nak menentukan sesebuah tempat punya cost of living tu kan,
Yeah.
kita lihat daripada sudut value tanah dia.
So kalau tanah cyber ni daripada segi strategi dia lah yang buat dia special, is it? Sebab dekat dengan apa tu dengkil apa semua ke ada sebab?
Betul. Salah satunya dari segi position dia lah. Position dia satu sebab dia betul-betul kat sebelah Putrajaya. Dan macam Fatha dah mention tadi, dia punya connectivity dia ataupun accessibility dia, macam highway-highway yang berdekatan tu pun berada di Cyberjaya tau. So, itu salah satu faktor yang drive market value di situ. Akan tetapi untuk menjawab soalan kau dari segi cost of living tu kan, disebabkan macam Fatha cakap, disebabkan Cyberjaya ni masih dalam pembangunan lagi ataupun masih dalam development lagi, cost of living dia tidaklah terlalu tinggi macam di Kuala Lumpur. Akan tetapi dia tidak murah lah. Boleh dikatakan Cyberjaya ni dia punya rental lah, sebab kalau dalam real estate ni nak menentukan cost of living tu kita tengok kepada rental dia. So rental dia tu lebih kurang macam Shah Alam dan Subang Jaya.
For a house it's would be around 1.5, is it? Ke lebih? Ke sampai 2,000?
Yes, dia boleh.
Untuk rumah yang baru siap buat macam tak ada apa furniture sangat dalam tu.
Kalau macam tu kita tengok kepada
Lokasi.
contoh rumah. Lokasi tidak masalah kot, tapi contoh rumah sebagai contoh rumah tu dalam bentuk strata ataupun landed. Sebab
Okay,
kalau dalam landed tu kan, macam kau nak sewa semi-D kan, kos dia agak tinggi lah, boleh dapat dalam 2,000 dan ke atas. Tapi kalau terrace tu lingkungan 2,000 dan ke bawah. Untuk strata pula, harga dia lebih kurang macam ada yang ada di Klang Valley ni, macam rate student sewa rumah di mana-mana kondominium yang ada.
Alright, faham. Thank you, man.
Fathah, kalau kau ada apa orang panggil approach lain, boleh bagi tahu?
Approach lain.
Macam mana kau nak menentukan cost of living kat situ kan? Mungkin kau ada idea lain ke?
But if I'm not mistaken lah, my sister, she purchased, I think, condominium in Cyberjaya. The price for me not that cheap, and at the same time it's not that high. It's around 450,000. Strata freehold title.
Freehold title
Yeah, freehold titles.
Wow. Itu yang buat dia mahal.
Satu term yang dalam real estate ke?
Untuk tu kita kena faham tenure tau. Itu orang panggil tenure. Tenure ni dia ada dua.
Okay.
Satu leasehold, satu lagi freehold. So tenure ni adalah pegangan ataupun interest kita kat tanah tu. Leasehold interest ni adalah pegangan tanah kita yang dipajak ataupun pajakan. Tanah yang pajakan, iaitu tanah tu kan milik kita bukan selamanya, dia ada tempoh dia. So
For
basically,
example, dia punya tenure tu lebih kurang like ada orang pernah bagi tu like 100 tahun. Lepas tu and then setelah kan 100 tahun.
betul. Yang 100 tahun tu yang ada limit lah, orang kata yang ada limit tu adalah leasehold title. So leasehold title kat Malaysia yang paling biasalah orang akan dengar adalah sampai 99 tahun. Akan tetapi tengok juga tanah-tanah yang lain lah, sebab ada setengah 60 tahun, macam kat Terengganu ada leasehold sampai 60 tahun saja. Macam ada leasehold juga sampai 30 tahun saja. Tapi memang menjadi kebiasaan tanah leasehold di Malaysia ni 99 tahun. So kalau freehold ni pula adalah pegangan selama-lamanya. So maksudnya kau kalau ada 10 keturunan pun nama tanah tu pun masih tanah keturunan kau juga. Kalau tak jual lah, kalau dah jual tanah orang lain lah. Tapi kalau tak jual memang tanah kau selama-lamanya.
Crystal clear, Muiz.
Terbaik. Alright Fathah, boleh kau cerita pasal property yang kakak kau beli tu? Dalam size ke kan? Size dia berapa besar?
Size is 1,100.
Ui, besar juga. Untuk kondominium
itu apa?
besar juga.
Berapa square feet tu? Apa nama kondo tu?
Lakeview.
Oh, eksklusif tu Fathah.
Dia ada duplex tak duplex? Aku berminat nak cari duplex tu.
But the Lakeview residence is good because it's nearby with hospital Cyberjaya.
Oh, Cyberjaya ada hospital?
Ya, baru buat. I
Dah siap
rasa
dah?
nak buka. Dah siap dah. Cuma I'm not sure bila buka. Good
Maknanya
amenities. Good amenities. That's all for me. If you have any question, you ask us.
Nak tanya, in terms of environmental or green technology, ada tak yang implement dekat Cyberjaya? Sebab because nama pun dah cyber. So I think about regarding technology or like green things apa semua, is it implemented there or not?
Untuk menjawab soalan kau Lip, kan?
Yeah.
Memang ada Lip, sebabkan polisi di Cyberjaya pun dia enhance credibility GBI. GBI ni adalah Green Building Index. So dalam Green Building Index ni beberapa faktor lah nak menentukan sesebuah bangunan tu Green Building Index, iaitu satu, dia punya energy consumption dia. So basically di Cyberjaya ni boleh dikatakan bangunan-bangunan yang sedia ada tu menggunakan energy consumption secara consumption tu renewable. Iaitu dia orang menggunakan power solar kan. Contoh-contoh seperti itu. Dan juga untuk yang dia menjadikan dia Cyberjaya tu, dia menggunakan teknologi-teknologi yang sedia ada untuk menyelaraskan penggunaan sistem yang ada di sesebuah bangunan. Sebagai contoh IoT. Awak pernah dengar tak IoT, Alin?
Internet of Things.
Yes lah, yang tu awak. Awak pun tahu kan konsep dia? Okay, so IoT ni, Internet of Things ni, dia adalah sesebuah sistem lah. Aku boleh katakan dia sebagai sistem lah. Dia dapat membantu manusia seperti kita ni untuk menjalankan sesebuah kerja atau sesebuah apa tu orang panggil,
Business activity.
bukan business activity, macam sebab dia more kepada penggunaan building tau. Sebagai contoh lampu kan, lampu, kita ambil contoh lampu. Sesetengah building lampu dia on and off secara automatik tau. Okay, untuk dia menyelaraskan on and off switch secara automatik ataupun automatik tu, dia menggunakan IoT lah. So IoT ni dia connectkan sistem, dia connectkan komputer ni kepada sistem-sistem yang ada di sesebuah bangunan. Salah satu contoh.
Faham. Maksud dia macam dia increase the bukan accessibility, tapi macam how the function to work, lepas tu dia simplify dan dia automated kan the machine. Betul tak? Macam tu.
Yes, apa yang aku belajar macam tu lah.
Muiz, can I add? Okay. So in Cyberjaya, there are several buildings that use Green Building Index. For example, Masjid Fi Sabilillah.
Lama.
I think you know, right, Muiz? That masjid.
I about masjid ada agak kabur-kabur lah, but you could elaborate more.
Okay, for example, the masjid, and then there's several buildings, Cyberjaya, that the Green Building Index. The Green Building Index is not just for energy consumption, it's also used for the water efficiency, and then the waste reduction and the life cycle of the building. Life cycle of the building is very important. So kiranya macam can perform at very best for a certain period of time. Kena always
I see. Faham?
for the building management.
Fatha,
Yes?
Hijaz ada tanya ni. Dia tanya mengenai populasi di Cyberjaya.
For
So
population.
population lah. So soalan dia, kalau Cyberjaya ni jadi bandaraya kan, will it be Sepang City or Cyberjaya City? So could you share your opinions on that?
Currently, Cyberjaya around 100,000 something.
Dia tak sampai lagi 500,000 lah.
I think it will be increased.
Ya, in further time it will be increased insyaAllah lah. Sebab
Will be.
Cyberjaya pun belum settle lagi.
Yeah, there's a lot of macam building yang still develop, right?
Tapi untuk menjawab soalan Hijaz ni kan, kalau dia dah reach certain population and fill up the requirements of bandaraya kan, aku rasa dia tak jadi Sepang City tapi dia jadi Cyberjaya City.
Yeah, it becomes Cyberjaya City.
Kan?
Bandar Cyberjaya. I
Dia
think
macam-
Cyberjaya already called Cyberjaya, Bandar Cyberjaya.
Sebab dia macam jadi kes Shah Alam kan, sebab Shah Alam tertakluk pada daerah Petaling. So dia tak cakap Petaling City kan, dia cakap Shah Alam City. Sebab memang betul Cyberjaya ni dalam daerah Sepang, tapi Cyberjaya ni sebuah bandaraya. Belum lagi sebuah bandaraya, tapi dia sebuah
Sebuah bandar.
sebuah bandar, yes, bandar township.
And
So he just
perhaps will be bandar raya someday. Who knows?
boleh jadi, boleh
jadi.
sebab akulah, ini my opinion lah kan. Lepas aku study dia punya policy, dengan tengok-tengok tech companies pun dah ramai, dah banyak start kan, aku rasa memang boleh lah in 10 years time tu Kalau betul prediction aku boleh reach to 500,000 population, dan dari sudut revenue tu pun boleh meningkat sebabkan kalau value tanah tu tinggi, automatically cukai-cukai yang ada, iaitu cukai tanah dan cukai pintu yang sedia ada di sesebuah tempat tu pun akan menjadi tinggi juga.
Because they have industries, right? Industries to
Yes.
start, I think it's quite high. Muiz,
Yes,
I just found out that Cyberjaya populations will expected to increase 500,000 by 2035 on way to go.
Oh, okay. Another 15 years 14 years.
Muiz, boleh share sikit ke what are some of the green tech companies yang is in Cyberjaya?
Green tech companies in Cyberjaya. Tahu in the moment ni satu saja, which is Cyberview. Kau boleh check lah Cyberview ni. Dia ada several tapi aku tak ingat. Sekejap aku check balik. Alright, Lid. Dia ada satu is Robotech Machinery, which consolidate to robo technologies, robotics lah. Dia bina, dia develop robots di situ. Lagi satu is UTM Ericsson Innovation Center for 5G. Setakat ni within my knowledge tu je lah, bos.
That's very good. Thank you, Muiz.
Kalau kau lah, ini aku just nak minta opinion kau lah kan. Kalau kau kan diberi pilihan untuk invest in real estate dekat Cyberjaya ni, kau nak invest kat types of property yang macam mana? Industri ke, commercial ke, atau residential?
For me,
Dan kenapa?
So, in my opinion, I think I will choose residential because I can rent out my house. That's how I invest.
What about commercial? What do you think of commercial kat Cyberjaya ni? Do you think it's profitable?
I think depends on what kind of business you do. This is just my
Betul.
opinion. It's just my opinion.
So Fatha, kau rasa Cyberjaya ni dari segi zoning dia unik tak?
Cyberjaya is a plan. It's a good, well-planned city. So in terms of zoning, it's good compared to other place. For me, compares Cyberjaya and Klang, for example. Cyberjaya is like well developed, well planned because it's already like zone this kind of land use in here, industry in here, residential in here, it's like academic education area is here, so it's very well planned compared to like old towns such as Klang.
Dia center dia antara KLIA, KL, Putrajaya dengan Klang in a way kan, betul tak?
Yeah.
Bagi aku, tarikan Cyberjaya ni boleh jadi strong ni disebabkan sebelah di Putrajaya. Kalau ni bagi aku lah, kalau kan Putrajaya tu dia existed somewhere else kan, agak payah sebenarnya Cyberjaya ni nak jadi established.
Betul, in a way ya. Dia memang betul-betul sebelah Putrajaya. But like to me kan, how do you see Cyberjaya like macam, is it going to be like Austin lah, for example. Austin kat Texas, dia tengah ambil alih Silicon Valley, San Francisco contohnya.
Faham? Alright.
Okay.
So kalau bagi aku lah, in anything lah kan, kalau nak build township tu memang population lah number one. Tu satu lah. Kalau populasi di Cyberjaya tu makin meningkat sampai 500,000 tu kan, takkan larilah company-company tu memang nak start di situ lah. Memang golden opportunity kat situ after populasi tu dah start meningkat.
I mean like, okay, let's say macam Austin lah kan. Austin is considered a small city in Texas. Kat Texas sendiri pun ada Houston, Dallas kan. So Austin ni considered a new city in Texas. So it starts to attract tech companies. Aku pelik, kenapa dia tak pergi Houston, kenapa dia tak pergi ke Dallas, sedangkan those cities are more established and Also at the same time, state income tax and also state tax adalah sama. So like so what are the policies yang selalu dinyatakan dalam setiap satu bandaraya ni? And one more, based on the population kan, what is the theory to actually increase population?
Secara teorinya adalah macam Fathah cakap sebelum ni adalah connectivity. So kalau once connectivity tu dah start enter in any areas kan, most probably dia akan increase in population sebab orang nak enter dan orang nak rasa senang kan, nak duduk terus kat situ sebab ada economy opportunity pun ada di situ, salah satu faktor juga.
Betul. I mean, Cyberjaya first and foremost dia develop sebab dia develop sebelah Putrajaya.
Yes.
Tanah dia awal-awal masa develop pun dah mahal. So macam Bangi, Kajang sebenarnya diorang baru nak teroka lebih. And Cyberjaya pula tahu-tahu banyak dah zone. Diorang dah develop layout Cyberjaya tu dah awal sangat and they jack the price. Tapi dia bukan jack the price, memang value dia tinggi. Basically orang nak alihkan dari Kuala Lumpur ke Putrajaya for administration purposes. That was the government's initiative at that time. So sekarang ni memang Putrajaya high value sebab administration center. So Cyberjaya is just sebelah. So betul lah cakap kau Muiz, like the value of Cyberjaya with its close proximity to Putrajaya and KLIA sahaja pun is already, high value lah. So
betul.
I mean,
itu asal kalau kau perasan kan Jas, kat situ, kat area-area situ, Sepang lah kan. Area such as Kota Warisan, Bandar Ensteg, Banting, Sungai Merak kan. Harga tanah dia berbeza tau dengan Cyberjaya. Tu pasal ramai orang shift kepada tempat-tempat yang macam tu rather than terus kata ke Cyberjaya.
Betul.
Walhal connectivity tu sama juga, sama yang dia offer macam di Cyberjaya. Tu pasal orang kata macam lebih baik dia transmit tu Kota Warisan,
Dengkil. Dengkil also lah kan.
Yes. Betul. So itulah dia tengok kan, connectivity semua sama macam Cyberjaya kan. Lepas tu cuma amenities tak adalah sama, amenities lain lah. Cuma sekarang ni orang more prone to connectivity tau, nak bergerak tu kepada satu tempat kepada satu tempat tau. So orang tengok tu je.
So aku interested dengan cerita Fatha tadi. So basically kalau nak beli residential property kat Cyberjaya kan, dia like kenapa Cyberjaya ni dipilih untuk residential? What is the volume lah untuk orang rent saja kat Cyberjaya buat rental property?
So for the rental property since Cyberjaya dia ada macam education area kan, so I think there's some for example Wing University, Multimedia University can be rented for the students.
Faham? So it is more like sekarang ni ada 2 universiti kat sana and dua-dua universiti ni boleh provide rental punya macam mana nak cakap, prospect. Betul tak?
Rental punya prospect.
Okay, last kali kan zoning ni must it be like should it just be residential, industrial and commercial saja, or can it be hybrid?
It can be hybrid. It's called mixed use development.
Mixed use development. So boleh terangkan tak mixed use development ni macam mana?
Mixed development ni kan kalau let's say macam zoning yang previous zoning is single use, means residential sahaja, commercial sahaja. But for mixed use development, it's mix between residential and commercial. For example, like macam Soho kan, so ada macam properties yang high rise properties yang bawah dia shopping mall, atas dia condominium. One mixed use.
Faham. So like macam
Safe
Soho
land
lah.
as well. Sebab safe land lah. dia tak adalah penggunaan banyak tanah. From the previous Minister of Communication and Multimedia for his speech on Cyberjaya Infra Conference and Exhibition. So dalam speech tu dia ada stated lah yang Cyberjaya punya number of population
Okay.
will increase.
Faham. Okay, so we have come to the end of our second segment. Thank you everyone for joining for today's episode.